Welcome to the Faith is Not Blind podcast. I'm here in Gothenburg, Sweden with Leif Mattsson. Leif, thanks for being with us.
Good to be here.
Leif, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you came into the church. Your parents were members. Did they convert, or they were the first generation?
Absolutely.
How did that come about?
In 1915, my grandfather, who was an officer at the castle in Stockholm.
Okay.
Riding.
At the Royal Castle?
Yeah, Royal Castle.
Okay.
And he got back to Filipstad in Värmland.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to marry his sweetheart, Hildegard Skogsberg.
Okay.
And that was not approved by his father. So he did not get any, what's it called, dowry?
Okay.
Anyway, but he married her, and they had 3 daughters and then 1 son. And then they moved to Göteborg to get some great work. And in 1923, the missionaries knocked at the door. He was home. He was sick for the first time probably in his life.
He, your grandfather?
Grandfather Oscar
Okay.
Fredrik Mattsson.
Okay.
And my grandma opened the door, and she just closed it and came back. And he asked her who was at the door, and she said, well, there are so many, weird people running these days at the doors. So anyway, he said he felt immediately an impression that go and find them. So she actually did that, and she found them and brought them back, and they were taught the gospel of Jesus Christ. And in 1923, they were baptized. 6 months later, my father, who was the youngest, was baptized with his sister, and then another 6 months later, which was a year after the first baptism, the other 2 older sisters were baptized.
Okay. Any idea why those 2 older sisters took a little bit longer?
No. I think, I don't understand why they were not baptized all at the same time. I think my dad was 10.
Okay.
But I think maybe my grandpa felt it was important for them to get to know the gospel and attend church and really have a desire to become members of their own.
Right.
The 2 older daughters, the oldest daughter, 2 of the older daughters left for United States, moved to Connecticut.
Okay.
They'd just been members of a church for like a couple of years. And they were working in homes of rich people. And I think that the idea was that my grandpa wanted to bring his entire family over to Zion. And the first stop would be New York, and they would go in advance. That
Okay.
never happened.
Everybody else stayed here.
Yeah, my grandpa said that he felt the Lord wanted him to stay. And my father said the same thing.
And what year was this?
1923.
When it was very, very common for people still to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that ended in 1950s.
Yeah, after World War II.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the prophet of the church said, please stay in your countries and build the kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your dad was 10 when he was baptized. How did he and your mother raise you in the church? How did they cultivate your testimony? How did you come to believe?
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting story. My dad was serving as a district president in the Göteborg district, and he rode a motorbike. Winter, summer, any time of the year. And going to places like Karlstad, 3.5 hours maybe, in the winter. And he gave us many stories about that. Something happened to the motorbike. He had to walk for like 20 kilometers, praying that somebody would help him. And it was answered many times. And in miraculous ways, he was helped to sort of get on his way and get back to his home. He had newspaper inside to keep the cold off. He had a weird sort of thing on his head, and he had sort of a plastic thing in front of him to keep the wind away. But when he came home, he was like, I remember as a kid, I saw him coming into a small 2-room apartment, standing against the, what does it called? Elevator? To get his hands warm.
Uh-huh. Oh, the radiator.
On the radiators.
Uh-huh.
And, he was almost blue in his face, because of the cold.
Uh-huh.
And he could stand like that for 30 minutes to thaw out. And then my mom had some food for him and so forth. But what did my mom do when he was traveling all the time on Sundays? We didn't have the money to buy tickets to go on a tram or a bus to church. But it was 3 miles or 5 kilometers one way. In those days, we went in the morning, then went back after Sunday school, and then went back for the evening sacrament meeting, and then went back after that. And I remember she got us dressed in the morning, and my father was gone, and as was the common thing, and then we would walk together. And we were just small kids, my twin brother and I, and my 2 older brothers. And we asked her, can't we get on a bus, and can't we get on a tram? Can't we, go? I don't want to walk like this. I'm so tired, little boy. And my mother's response was, let's sing a song. And we would sing songs, walking to church, back and forth like that. So that's a tremendous foundation for me to think about her and her wonderful testimony, and also her way of looking after the boys to bring them to church. It was important. So we didn't have the money to drive a car. I was probably about 12 when we had a car, and we could get to church in a better way. But that's sort of the upbringing I had for many, many years, just walking to church because it was important.
Yeah. When do you feel like you got your own testimony? Was it very gradual, or are there certain experiences that serve as anchors?
I've always felt that I've had a testimony, that I knew what my grandfather and my father and my mother, when they taught us to pray about God, about religion, about our faith, about the pioneers, and about all the wonderful things in the gospel, that it was true. I always felt that. But I did read the Book of Mormon. My father always told the boys, you have to get your own testimonies. And he sometimes asked us, and my mother did too, what would happen if we would not be here anymore? Would you still go to church? Would you still sort of live the commandments? Would you follow our example? And so forth. So I read the Book of Mormon from first to last page when I was 14. I still have that little book at home, and I've written down the date when I finished it. And I did it very quickly. I did it like in about a month or 6 weeks. And I was so filled when I read it that I do remember that when I prayed to the Lord about the prophet Joseph Smith, that he did answer that this is his true gospel of Jesus Christ. This is his work. I could sense that, and I knew that. And since then, I've always felt that way. And also, when I was 19 and graduated from the gymnasium, as we call it, upper high school, my goal was to go to BYU. And in those days, they didn't talk too much about going or serving on a mission. I knew some people that did serve on a mission, and I always felt that maybe I should. Of course, my parents talked about this, but never really chased us or mentioned it too often. But they felt that it was a wonderful thing to do, and they loved the missioners. We had the open house in our home for the missioners every time, every year. And we loved the missioners for sure. We had all these great stories about their families and what they've done and so forth. But at BYU, I got a tremendous testimony. I had the courses that I took was Joseph Smith and the Restoration and the Book of Mormon, and met some of the best, the most wonderful men in my life. Professors at BYU have written books about the history of the church with the prophet Joseph Smith. I loved the prophet Joseph Smith. And I used to go down to their offices after the courses, and I just kept asking questions and loved the response that I received.
Was there anything when you were a young child that was very much, felt right? You trusted your parents, you trusted your grandpa, and then you find yourself in more of an academic environment, which is still very, very church oriented.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine that this was a much more deep dive into the history of the church and things like that. Did you uncover anything in those times that was surprising to you?
I've heard about polygamy. I've heard about all these things that do trouble some people these days.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was intriguing. I was intrigued. I loved to delve into it. And I didn't see, I felt that everything was in totally normal when I read the Old Testament and the stories about David and all the other prophets, and Moses and many others, that the Lord commanded certain things at certain times. And so I felt it was just normal. And when I also found out more details about it, it never bothered me at all. That they talked about several wives, or that Joseph Smith was sealed to several women and so forth. It never bothered me at all.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt that was totally normal. It was the way it was in the past, and it's going to be like this when the restoration of the gospel has been done, completed. Absolutely.
And do you think that what made it normal then was that God had commanded?
Yeah, God commanded these great patriarchs for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And he did the same thing when we restored the church. He commanded the prophets for a great purpose. And to raise seed, but as the Book of Mormon says, in other times when he's not commanding this, it is not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was totally normal to me.
Consistent with what you'd read in both the Bible
very
and the
consistent.
Book of Mormon. Now you served, you sat on the stand for 30 plus years of your life. Finding yourself, I'm sure, in lots of conversations with people who maybe have come to you as a bishop or a stake president, and they're going through a challenge, or they're going through, maybe they've encountered some information that is troubling to them. What perspective do you bring to those kind of conversations, and how do you help people who you're ministering to who might be struggling with some element of their testimony?
Boy, I've been going through a process myself to become better as a counselor, because people do have questions, and it's not, the typical response would not be to read more scriptures or pray more or harder.
Right.
But you have to, I understand you have to love somebody, you have to love them, of course, but the next thing would be to show empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and to listen. There's so many people that have felt that they cannot stand or remain in the church. I know some of them that left, the ward where I was a bishop or the stake.
Mm-hmm.
But they go out, if they leave the church, they go out and they meet them. I see them on Facebook, and I'm still their friends,
Mm-hmm.
but I see that they gather, they get together,
Mm.
they have a forum where they talk about us. They're talking about what's going on. They're very interested, because when I meet them, they always ask questions. I guess you're still active and faithful,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth, and I am. But so they found their forum where they can share their feelings. I sometimes we will reach, I hope that the church will open up in such a way that it will be a forum for these people to feel welcome to come to church and feel empathy and feel that people are listening. I don't think I can tell anybody, what to do anymore.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you used to?
If they have some specific questions, I used to tell them. And I used to give them all kinds of advice. And that really doesn't work. They need to be listened to.
Mm.
And if that's hard, if you're married to somebody, if you have a divorce, there's a sort of open cut, it's a sore situation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need some time. It's going to go some time before you can actually, be able to be listening or be, participating in somebody's deep feelings particularly of things that you love, like the gospel of Jesus Christ, or the church, or the prophets, or the commandments.
Mm-hmm.
So empathy, of course you have to love, but it's difficult. I've seen this sometimes, people that are near to me, it'll take some time before I'm, in a position myself where I can actually do that.
Right.
I'm still working at it. I can do it.
Yeah, when the church is such a strong bond between two people, it can be hard sometimes to not take personally when somebody might, leave the church, because that was such a strong common bond that you had that you no longer share. It's been severed. How can we do a better job? I mean, from your perspective, of showing empathy and of loving people and of creating a forum where it's okay to be on very different places of testimony and the covenant path, so to speak.
Yeah. I've talked to people who have seen their sons or daughters, they are married with grandchildren, leave the church.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when they are asked to look after the children, they bring them to church for primary, hoping that they will, when the parents get back, that they will ask the parents that I want to go back to primary. I like it. I like their friends.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a matter of fixing your own feelings, not their feelings.
So interesting. Okay.
That's what I think, and you can't fix your own feelings. So that's why you can't really do things, sort of try to make them remember the church or try to put them in a position where they have to, wow, this is something that I lack in my life. Mm-hmm. I think that it's harder, it's more complicated than that. And I think you need to be in a position where you need to, if you're responsible for families, as in the old days as a home teacher, now you're just a minister. You're ministering to people. You need just to be able to listen to them.
Yeah.
And if they ask for some help, because you can't show them anything what to do or give them pointers, or you can revert to things like common things like reading the gospel or the scriptures or pray. You can even include fasting and so forth. But if they've sort of made a decision, it's going to take some time.
Sure. Yeah,
but it's difficult to, the church is not ready, I think, for them to feel that way, to come back, because, when they get here, they feel like they will be reminded of a lot of things that they don't possibly believe in or they don't want to do anymore.
And it seems to me that maybe somebody who's left the church and might feel an interest at whatever level of coming back, however often or seldom.
Yeah.
It feels like there might be some pain that could come along with that. How can we alleviate the pain? Just through that love and empathy?
Yeah, I've been thinking about love a lot. You just love them, but you need to go further. Empathy. You need to listen. Maybe shut up and listen.
Okay.
And you can't say that much, but there is a lot of pain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain in me as well, particularly if they're family members.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent a lot of time, a lot of hours on my knees praying for them and been really sad. It's changed my life. Something they express feelings that they are in a position where they feel that we have turned their backs on them.
Yeah.
But we never really have. But they feel like that. They feel that we have, because they are hurt, and they've changed their opinion about the gospel of Jesus Christ and so forth. They always talk about that we live in a bubble. And I like to think that, I'm grateful for that bubble. That's the Holy Ghost. I need that bubble. When I walk around in my everyday life, I need to be in that bubble. But I also need to be open to people's needs and listen to them.
And listen to them. And do you think it's that listening that helps us develop the empathy?
I do.
When we're still in a state of mind where we want to convince somebody,
Yeah.
that it's blocking our ability to, even if we
Yeah.
love them, it's blocking
Yeah.
our ability to have empathy.
Yeah.
And without empathy, it's going to be hard for us to make people feel welcome wherever they are
Yeah.
on the faith
Yeah.
journey.
As soon as I get into a situation where I argue about something, I think I lose the spirit.
Yeah.
And when I do that, be agitated about something that I know is right and they believe it's not right. I don't think it's right to be that way in a relationship with people. I think we need to listen. I need to shut up and I need to listen and be kind and loving. And I think they will love me for that.
Well, it strikes me that that's the pattern that your grandfather set with your father's sisters.
Yeah.
When part of the family, when the family was baptized at varying points, when each individually was ready and when each individually made that decision to get baptized.
I have some children who have visited some people that are close to us, and that one of my daughters had not seen them for many years. And all she did was to say, I'm Julia, the son of Eva, and the daughter of Eva and Leif.
Mm.
Oh, Julia. And she had her 3 sons with her, and they had a wonderful time together. And then they talked a little bit about Facebook, and they all sort of apologized that something sometimes is mentioned which is negative towards the church, because they know they would sort of hurt her. And she also said that she would continue to post some positive things about her experience attending church with the children and some pictures and so forth. And they immediately felt, well, of course you should continue doing that. That's very important for you and so forth. But it was a wonderful, sweet spirit between them. And when they left, when she left, they felt tremendously pleased and happy and at rest. And for the future, I think that will be a great relationship.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Leif. I really appreciate your insights on loving and showing empathy and listening, and all of these, I think, are opportunities for all of us and as an institution for the church to grow and become more welcoming and empathetic to all of our brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Leif.
Thanks.
Appreciate you taking the time.